right, so the last session we had a look at generics. We looked at stack and queue and also creating our own generic class and generic method. So that is done. Now next we will move on to look at uh, working with a list and a dictionary. To start with the dictionary. So dictionary is again another generic type. So this is how you create an instance of a dictionary. Dictionary of. Now, in case of a dictionary, you need to give a key and value pair. So let us say the key is an integer and the value is a string. Okay, in this particular case, creating an object of the dictionary. And let me just remove all this stuff. And okay, we have the dictionary. So into the dictionary, I can add items in this fashion. DICT, the object name dot add. And when I'm adding, I need to pass an integer and then a string. So integer, let us say, is 101. And let's say it's a string here, the name of a person, say Gopal. Dictionary dot add 102 is going to be Martin. Let's add just one more person in there. Dictionary dot add 103 is going to be Shelly. All right, so three values, three key value pairs in the dictionary, the object named DICT. Now to read from a dictionary, it's pretty simple. You can use a for each loop. For each, now there are two options here. For each of these key value pairs, right? These are all key value pairs. The key is the integer value and the value is the string that you're passing. So for each key value pairs, so key value pair, again of what type? Int and string. All right, and I'm going to give it an object name, say KV in the dictionary DICT. Okay, so the key value pair, each one by one we are looping through and getting it out. It's named as KV. So I can put a console dot write line, okay, and put say key, or rather role ID of zeroth index is first index. And what do I pass for the placeholders? I'm going to pass the key and the value. The key is going to be kv.key, pretty simple. And then the value is going to be kv.value in this case, because just one value we are talking about, one single value. It's not a custom type. We'll come to that, how to handle custom types. All right, so we are done. So it's supposed to now print out, line by line. Keeping fingers crossed. Okay, it's come. Yeah, it's come fantastic. Role ID of 101 is Gopal, and it goes on like that. Perfect. So that's how you read from a dictionary. All right, this is one of the ways, as I told you. There's another way to do it. Well, keep it simple. So let's say we don't want to do all this complicated stuff. Just put it as VAR. Okay. And KV. That's good enough. That'll give us the same result. All right. Okay, so that's a dictionary. It's a generic class dictionary. It can take different types of data, not necessarily only the built-in type and string. I can even pass custom types. So in fact, very soon we'll start looking at custom types, a very important concept in C#, talking about entities and how to use them with generics. Quite exciting that would be. So let me first explain to you how a list works and then get to that. Now, compared to dictionary, I have always found lists to be much more, simpler to use. And my favorite would be lists. I wouldn't use this often. I mean, the dictionary. So how do you create a list? Pretty simple. List of, right? Within this, I can give the type, say string, my list. equals new list of string. Now I don't have a key value pair, it's just a single, variable. So how can a list handle something like a key value pair? In case of a dictionary, we can do that. That is when we'll come to custom types. So before I come to that, let us look at a simple example of a string, a list of string. So the object name is my list. So I'm going to put my list dot add. Let us say India. My list dot add USA. My list dot add Japan. All right, let's keep to this three for now. All right, now let us now print out. So how do I do that from a list? Again, pretty simple. For each loop. Now, what do you have in this list? It's a string, right? For each string, give a string name. Let's say country in my list, right? That is a list. So my list. So I'm going to print out console dot write line. All right. In this case, it's pretty simple. Country, and we'll get the string value printed out. So again, as I said, when we come to key value pairs and probably entire rows of data, how to display using a string, I'm going to tell you about that in a short while from now using custom types. Okay, let's run it and see what happens. Superb, it's come perfectly as we wanted. All right, so that is a generic list. Now, when we come to generics and when we come to lists and dictionaries, it's very important to know that custom types are very often used to work with lists and dictionaries. So I'm going to show you an example of a custom type. Let us first try and understand a custom type. I'm going to create a class. Let's say we actually have something here, patient.cs. There's just one property. All right, let us just do it from scratch so that you can see the entire process. I'm creating a folder called models, and inside this folder I'm going to put a class, add a class, and I'm going to call that class as patient. Okay, the name of the class is patient. Okay, now I'll make it public, accessible out, elsewhere, everywhere. And then I'll put a few properties in here. So properties are in this fashion: properties, public int, let's say ID, get and set. Properties, public string name, get and set. String ailment of the patient, string mobile number, right? So I have few information about the patient, all put as properties inside a class. So when you do this, when you put properties and create a class with them, that becomes something called as an entity. This entire thing is representing a patient, right? So information about a patient is all clubbed together into this one entity. You can also call it as a class. Of course, it's a class, as you see here. You can also call it as a POCO class. That is plain old common language runtime object. That is POCO, standing for plain old common language runtime object. Now, these kind of objects without behavior and such stuff inside it, just properties, are very useful, very compatible across languages. So that's why these entities or models are quite powerful. Okay, and they are also called custom types. All right, so we have our custom type called patient. So it's pretty simple how you use them. I'm going to create a list of my custom type called patient. Okay, I'm just going to replace the string with patient. All right, into this list of type patient, I cannot add strings, of course. I need to add patients. So I'm going to add multiple patients into the list of patients. So let us see how we do that. To assign values to properties of a class, if you see here, these are properties you can get in set values. To assign values, I need to create an instance of this class and access it first, and then access each property inside it and assign values to it. And this is capital. All right. Now patient pt, it's new patient, and then to each property of pt, I'm going to assign a value. pt.id equals, let's say 101, pt.name equals, let's say Gopal, pt.ailment equals, let us give him fever, I hope he doesn't mind, pt.mobile number equals, it's a string actually, so we can just put some numbers inside a string, quotes, double quotes. Okay, so we have one object of patient class with values filled in. So one row of data we are talking about, and that can be now assigned to the list called my list, or we can even call it as, let us say, patient list, or whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to call it patients.add the type of data it expects, the list expects patient type, right? So the object pt is what I'm going to pass here. Simple as that. Now let us create one more object and assign values. Let us say I'm going to add one more. I'm going to call it as pt1, and pt1 here, let us call it as 102 as the id, pt1.name, let us say William, pt1.ailment, what do we give William? Let him have a backache. Well, I might sound little, I might sound a little malicious, just having some fun. Forgive me. Okay, the mobile number, we're going to put something like this. That's it. So we have two objects, pt and pt1, and the pt1 also will now be added to patients. Patients.add pt1. So we have two objects added to the list of patients. Now here we are, we're having a list, and we have a list of type patient, and I'm able to pass to it the key, the values, everything. So that's what I like about lists. I don't have to really bother about a key and a value pair and such stuff. The onus of making sure that I'm passing the ID as a keys on me. The list object which you create is not going to take responsibility for that. So that is pretty straightforward and quite fine with that. When you work with databases, you get to know more about it. The models also will really support. You can actually put some, attributes here. Like for example, a key attribute is one of them. System.component-model.data annotations library has to be added so that I can add that. Well, in a console application, you generally don't do this. It's in a web application also. In any case, if you add that library, then you can add it over here as a using statement, and then you can assign a particular property as a key. So that becomes the key. And when you work with databases, this will correspond to the database, and you can have a identity column created, and all those stuff. So that's how I have added to a list a custom type, which is in this case a patient, or multiple patients added to the list. Now how do I read from the list? Now what am I trying to read? I'm going to read each row of data. What is each row? Each row is a patient object. So this is what I need, right? So patient pt, or I can't give the same name, let's say patient, okay, small letter. In the list name is patients, so I'm going to put it here. So for each patient in patients, I'm going to write here console.writeLine is very simple now. Patient.id will give me the ID. And similarly, all the properties you can get values from. So let us make it a little interesting. Patient ID. Let us put a little story around it. uh, so and so, well, the patient name, okay, 0th index with ID of, well, the first index suffers from index position 2 and can be contacted at third index. Okay, let us fill the placeholders. So first we have the ID. So patient dot ID, comma, patient, oh my goodness, comma here, okay, patient dot, no, it's not ID first, it's name, patient dot name, and then we have patient dot ID and is ailment followed by mobile number. So patient dot ailment and patient dot mobile number. Super, done. Okay, now let us see what happens. Let's run it. We should have these in multiple rows, 2 rows actually. Well, Gopal with ID of 101 suffers from fever and can be contacted at so and so. William with ID of 102 suffers from backache and can be contacted at, and his mobile number. It's fantastic. It gives a human touch to it, doesn't it? All right. So that's about lists and dictionaries, and I've given a simple custom type example as well. You will get to know and deal with and work with a lot of these custom types when you learn MVC from me. I'm actually having a MVC course coming up shortly, Model View Controller for web development, and that is where working with databases and these generics and such stuff, you'll see a lot of such examples where you will create the database from models with a code first approach, or create the models from the database based on a database first approach, and then there's edu.net and a lot of exciting stuff there in my MVC course, which is going to come up shortly. All right, anyway, we're not getting there yet. So here we have a fair idea now. What are these custom types that you can create of your own, and how to use custom list and custom, well, dictionary I haven't shown you. So let me show you an example of how to do the same thing using dictionary as well. As I told you earlier, not my preference, but dictionaries can handle the same thing. So how do I do that? So dictionary of, now it expects a key and value pair. So in case of key, it is going to be an integer, the roll number or whatever, ID number. And then the value is going to be the patient object. It's going to be of patient type, right? So that way. Similarly here, so therefore, dictionary of int and patient. Okay, that's done. Well, all these remain the same. You create the patient object and all that stuff. Now into a dictionary, the patients, I need to add not only the patient object, but also the key. The key is going to be the patient ID. So simple pt.id becomes the key. That's it. And same over here. pt1.id is the key, and then the entire patient object is the value. Now, having done that, of course, we know that from a dictionary, we cannot read in this fashion. It has to be either a key value pair or the simpler option of putting just where let us say patient in patients. Okay, that is there. And then I cannot read it like this. This won't work. Okay, so this is a dictionary object. So therefore, I need to, it's a key value pair object. So I need to access it in this fashion. So well dot patient dot value dot name. From the value, well, say capital V. From the value, I need to access name of the patient. In this case, the ID, however, can be accessed in that fashion as well, but it is the key. So I just have to put patient dot key. That'll get me the ID. And as for ailment, of course, value dot ailment. And similarly here, patient dot value dot from the value part. I'm picking the mobile number as well. And we are done. Those are few changes, and dictionary is also going to take the same kind of thing and make it work. Fantastic. I get the same result. Okay, so that completes an intro and some examples on generics. So I hope you liked it. I hope you'll get time to practice. Very important that you do practice. I'll meet you again in the next session. Until then, bye-bye.